This video is an AI historical reconstruction based on records from the time, created for artistic and narrative purposes.
In the early hours of April 15, 1912, a distress call cuts through the hiss of radio static in the North Atlantic. Within minutes, a ship swings onto a new heading and drives straight into an ice field, knowing that every course correction, every extra knot of speed could decide who gets found in time. As dawn begins to lift, lifeboats appear between drifting floes, and the rescue becomes a cold, technical routine, repeated again and again in brutal conditions. Before we go lifeboat by lifeboat through this race against the clock, like the video, and subscribe to follow the full rescue reconstruction. Just after midnight, the ship's wireless picks up a repeated distress call buried in static. The operator confirms the coordinates, logs them, and realizes the signal is real and urgent. Within minutes, the message reaches the bridge, and the ship's rhythm flips from routine passage to rescue mission. The order to alter course comes without a long debate, because response time decides how many people can be reached. At the same time, the engine room is told to raise power, and the lookout routine is tightened to deal with low, floating ice. The race begins before the sea even turns gray, with every department stepping into a critical role. With the course set, navigation becomes a chain of short decisions and constant checks. The heading is adjusted to cut distance, but never with the illusion that this is safe water. This region is known for drifting ice. At the helm, small corrections keep the ship steady, avoiding sharp moves that could cost control. On deck, the crew sorts lines, ladders, and fenders because contact with lifeboats demands speed and precision. Inside, heated areas are prepared, and the infirmary organizes an intake point. The galley shifts into a continuous rhythm, keeping hot drinks ready the instant the first survivors come aboard. On the bridge, visibility is everything. Reflections are reduced, instruments kept tight, because ice can appear too late to matter. Below, steam pressure and flow are watched closely to hold speed without risking mechanical trouble. This is not brute force. It is fine-tuning, holding output without breaking the machinery. On deck, fenders are placed with the impact in mind, the moment a lifeboat bumps the hull. The work area is kept clear. No clutter, no hesitation. Inside, benches and public spaces turn into warming zones, with blankets and hot water ready. The entire ship reshapes itself to receive many people in sequence, not just a single emergency. As the sky lightens, ice becomes easier to spot and more frequent, scattered in patches. Searchlights and watchmen sweep the surface for low plates and small fragments, the most treacherous pieces because they hide until the last second. The bridge looks for cleaner corridors and prioritizes hull control, even if it costs a few minutes. On deck, built-up ice is cleared from work areas to prevent slips and equipment jams. Every team follows the same logic. Reduce operational risk now so the rescue does not collapse later. The goal is to arrive ready to transfer people safely, not just to arrive fast. The bridge updates time and distance with constant marks, tracking what remains and how the ice is spreading. Direct observation confirms the reality. This field demands careful handling, no dramatic maneuvers, just steady control to keep the ship stable. In the engine room, the strain stays constant, and any drop in output becomes minutes lost. On deck, lines and ladders are left exactly where they need to be for first contact, so there is no improvisation at the worst possible moment. Inside, the infirmary reinforces gradual warming and lays out simple supplies for triage. The operation is closing in on the moment when the run becomes the rescue. Morning light sharpens the contrast. Dark water, pale ice. The tempo changes. The bridge keeps its scan low, because small pieces can slip by if attention drifts too high toward the horizon. On deck, lines are coiled clean for fast throws without knots. The galley keeps trays ready because warming begins with simple things: heat, liquid, shelter from wind. The infirmary sets a flow: receive, warm, observe, place. No bottlenecks inside. That preparation cuts down the time a survivor stays exposed to the cold after coming aboard. A point of light, a low shape on the horizon, and the focus snaps. The first lifeboat is now clear enough to confirm. The bridge reduces speed and chooses a slow approach, careful not to shove ice toward the smaller craft. The priority is to create a windbreak along the ship's side, reducing the lifeboat's movement in the water. On deck, the heaving line is readied, and the contact point gets fenders to absorb impact. The danger now is not only the cold, it is a fall against the hull, or a boat crushed between drifting objects. From this moment on, logistics sets the pace of survival. With the lifeboat alongside, everything turns technical. Align, secure, stabilize, transfer. A boat hook keeps the craft off loose ice while the line is hauled in, bringing it gently against the fenders. A ladder goes down and is locked to reduce sway, because stiff hands and exhaustion make every step risky. At the intake point, blankets and hot drinks sit within reach to soften the shock of sudden warmth. The ship stops being a runner and becomes a transfer platform, repeating short, efficient procedures. What works here will be repeated, lifeboat after lifeboat. The first survivors climb slowly with little strength and coordination dulled by the cold. The crew gets each person out of the wind as fast as possible and guides them into sheltered spaces. In the infirmary, triage stays simple and direct. Check basic signs. Begin gradual warming. No reckless rush. On the bridge, the log keeps count and sequence because more boats still sit in the ice. The routine repeats. Up, supported, guided, warmed, recorded. Success depends on steady flow and on avoiding accidents that would halt the operation. By the second lifeboat, the method becomes faster and safer because the teams are now synchronized. When the ladder is not enough, nets and lines help lift those who cannot climb with steady footing, cutting the risk of a fall. Every approach stays slow, keeping the boat protected by fenders and away from loose ice. Hot drinks and blankets move in a continuous circuit because recovery starts in the first minutes after rescue. If you want to follow this rescue lifeboat by lifeboat and understand why logistics saved hundreds, like the video and subscribe. The ice is still all around them, but the procedure lowers the risk with every clean repetition.
This video is an AI historical reconstruction based on records from the time, created for artistic and narrative purposes.
With the sun higher, the search widens. Distant lifeboats become visible between scattered ice patches. The bridge adjusts by sectors, avoiding areas where the ice looks thicker and more closed in. On deck, a boat hook pushes away small pieces before they can scrape the lifeboat during approach. Inside, dry clothes and wool enter the routine, replacing wet fabric that strips heat fast. The bridge keeps count and notes positions because the operation needs control to avoid wasting time circling the same water. The field is still hostile, but the ship now runs like a moving rescue station. From here on, navigation becomes controlled repositioning. Short legs on a heading to reach newly sighted boats. Speed stays low when the ice thickens because stability and control matter more than a few extra knots. At the bow, lookouts guide the ship through cleaner lanes, reducing the risk of striking fragments. On deck, fenders are shifted and lines are kept ready for immediate contact, eliminating delay. The goal is a cycle that never breaks. Approach, secure, bring aboard, shelter. Every minute saved stacks into dozens of lives received through the morning. Another lifeboat reappears in the distance, and the bridge confirms shape and position before committing to the approach. The maneuver is slow and predictable, creating a windbreak and reducing the boat's swing alongside the hull. The line is thrown and hauled in carefully until the craft meets the fenders without a hard udder. The crew keeps it aligned, pushing away small pieces of ice that drift in with the water. It looks repetitive. And that is exactly the point. Repetition done right prevents accidents and keeps the rescue continuous. Every safe approach avoids an interruption, and interruptions cost lives. Transfer returns to the pattern, ladder stabilized, firm support, direct movement into shelter. Those who climb show exhaustion, and the immediate danger is a fall from hands that cannot grip. The crew guides each person into the warmed zone without creating a crowd on deck, because the workspace must stay clear for the next boat. The infirmary watches for hypothermia and shock, prioritizing gradual warming and hydration. The bridge keeps its records to track how many are aboard and how many boats remain in the field. This operation does not depend on heroics. It depends on method. When someone cannot climb the ladder, the net becomes the safer answer. The hoist is done smoothly, lines kept taut, checks constant, so no one drops during the ship's movement. In the lifeboat, the crew maintains alignment and uses the hook to push away small ice that could slam against the hull. The moment a person reaches the deck, they enter the warming flow. Blanket, heat, hot liquid. The cycle cuts exposure to wind and prevents a crash after rescue. It is an assembly line of survival, held together by discipline and repetition. With multiple lifeboats in the area, the bridge reinforces control through logs and timestamps, preventing confusion about what has already been handled. On deck, the crew keeps contact soft against the fenders and avoids hard impacts, because any fall or injury could halt the entire operation. Inside, accommodations are adjusted to keep passageways open and reduce trips, since floors may be damp and many survivors are weak. Care stays simple and functional. Warm, dry, watch for decline. The ship has to function as shelter and transfer platform at the same time. Organization is what makes hours of continuous rescue possible. As the rescue continues, the focus also shifts to preventing delayed complications, especially in severe cold. Medical staff check breathing, circulation, and extremities, warming people gradually, not too fast, to avoid harmful effects. Support crews hand out dry clothing and rearrange benches and blankets to make room for more. On deck, ladders and nets are pulled in, drained, and reset for the next use, avoiding knots and wear. The ship keeps moving in cycles: approach, transfer, shelter. Time saved in each cycle becomes capacity to save more people. The search reaches farther boats, and the bridge makes short adjustments to skirt areas where the ice is tighter. The helm executes slow, predictable turns, keeping the ship centered in relatively open lanes. Lookouts at the bow call out small fragments that can be pushed by water toward the hull. On deck, a hook clears ice near the contact point before it can slam into the lifeboat. Priority stays the same: protect the ship and the gear, because damage would shrink rescue capacity. The operation remains technical, repetitive, controlled, exactly what it must be. In persistent cold, keeping people dry becomes as important as pulling them from the water. The crew separates wool clothing and organizes rapid distribution, because wet fabric accelerates heat loss. Medical staff watch for subtle signs of hypothermia and adjust blankets to protect hands and feet. The galley sustains the flow of hot liquids, a simple tool that helps recovery and reduces shaking. On deck, blankets are staged near the reception area for immediate use after each transfer. Rescue does not end at the rail. It continues inside, minute by minute, until bodies stabilize. Lifeboats still remain scattered, and the ship repositions with slow maneuvers to keep control in water with leftover ice. The bridge chooses short routes through open lanes, avoiding the hull's contact with larger plates. On deck, the ladder goes down again, and the intake point stays stocked. Because every arrival demands the same care, survivors are moved straight into shelter, minimizing time in the wind. The bridge log keeps count and sets the next heading without losing the field's reference points. Even with the sun higher, the ice demands discipline until the end. With fewer boats in view, the operation becomes a sector sweep, refusing to leave anyone behind. The bow picks up a distant craft, and the bridge brings the ship in slowly, prioritizing stability and a windbreak along the hull. A line is thrown. The boat is eased into the fenders without hard impact. Wood and people protected. The ladder is stabilized, and the climb happens at a cautious pace because exhaustion turns any step into a risk. At intake, blankets and warmth come first, before deeper evaluation. The pattern holds until lifeboats grow rare and the ice field begins to show more debris than craft. The scene changes. Planks and small objects drift between low ice, signals of the wreck. The bridge keeps the ship clear of that material to avoid blows to the hull or damage to the propellers. On deck, hooks push wood away when it drifts too close, while the ship advances at minimal speed. The wireless sends updates and confirmations, preparing communication with shore and coordinating what comes next. Inside, care continues because cold does not end with rescue. It can worsen afterward. This stretch is the transition from rescuing lifeboats to confirming there are no lifeboats left to find. With no new boats nearby and the count holding steady, the bridge decides to leave the ice zone. The final entry is closed out to lock the total received and prevent mistakes. On deck, lines, ladders, and nets are pulled in, dried as much as possible, and secured for open water. The priority becomes safe transport. keep survivors warm, fed, observed through the passage. Leaving the ice is not a dramatic ending. It is a technical step to reduce navigational risk. With the bow pointed toward clearer water, speed increases gradually, controlled. In the hours that follow, the ship must function as continuous shelter, not just a transfer point. Interior spaces are reorganized to fit more people with blankets, without blocking corridors needed for movement and care. Medical staff repeat simple checks, looking for shock, severe cold stress, and small injuries that can worsen quietly. The wireless logs confirmations and keeps communication active about progress and needs upon arrival. On deck, remaining ice is cleared from work areas and equipment is locked down for open water. With the ice line behind them, the priority is arrival without incident, stable, and controlled. In open water, the routine shifts again. Normal watch and sustained care. The bridge confirms no ice nearby and holds a steady course to reduce roll and make interior movement easier. Treatment continues with simple dressings, clothing changes, and hydration with hot liquids, keeping warming gradual. The crew separates wet clothing to prevent moisture from chilling those already rescued. On deck, equipment is checked and secured to prevent accidents as the ship moves. The wireless prepares messages to coordinate reception at port and avoid delays on arrival. Entering port demands another technical sequence. Slow down, align, coordinate with local traffic. A pilot comes aboard, and the bridge adjusts maneuvers to approach the dock safely in variable visibility. On deck, the crew prepares lines and organizes a slow, controlled disembarkation. No pushing, because many are still weak. Lines go over, the ship makes fast, and the gangway is lowered, beginning the exit in an orderly file. The final image is not a loud celebration. It is an operational close. People wrapped in blankets stepping onto solid ground. The result of the rescue is visible in one fact. Hundreds reached port because a fast response became a consistent, technical operation.